Over the past week or so, I was just minding my own business, enjoying my weekend. It was actually a long weekend in Australia. And this story comes across my desk. George Janko speaking with Nala Ray on his podcast. I didn't know that he actually had her on the podcast, but they mentioned yourself and Brian, not by name, but by the whatever podcast. George Janko, horribly misinformed about this. Just a little quick overview. I posted this on my Instagram, Rattlesnake TV. If you guys want to go check it out, my Instagram. And Rach replied to it, and then George Jenko replied saying, "We would love to speak to you guys, or whatever." I think they've exchanged a DM, but nothing has been actually organized yet. So, any movements on that front?
Yeah, Janko won't respond to us, so that's the movement. What likely happened, this is just a theory, is that Janko was like, actually, I'd love to hear from you guys. These are probably just dumb Manosphere guys. And someone was like, hey, listen, Janko, you probably don't want Andrew on your show because he's going to fucking tear into you like a hobo into a bologna sandwich and make you look fucking stupid. So that's probably like the worst possible thing that you can do. And he was like, oh shit. Okay. Yeah, I better not actually do that. So we're back to these broads can peddle their atrocious lies and nobody's allowed to defend themselves from it. That's basically how it is.
I have a slightly different theory. I think that, and we're going to play the clip in a second, and this is quite the clip, really. 2 minutes of just, whew. Anyways. But I think that maybe he wanted to save face a little bit by saying that he would have you on, but maybe actually never doing the podcast. I think there was something with Sam Shamoon where he had Sam Shamoon on the podcast, but then never released it. So look, I've actually met George Jenko a few years ago at a Halloween party in Los Angeles, kind of like just random, but he was there, and his now wife was there. Really good guy in person. His wife was a really sweet lady. So I've got nothing against these guys whatsoever. It's not necessarily an attack, but I do think that this is just like they are so. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they're just misguided about the situation. Like they actually haven't watched the episode. They've got no idea what they're talking about. But I don't know. Let's watch the clip.
One of the mistakes I do regret making was going on the whatever podcast. I was like, maybe I wasn't ready for that because it was a 9-hour podcast in a stuffy room with 2 men just tearing me apart.
Not the first time she's had 2 men tearing her apart.
By the way, I wasn't in the room. That's the first lie. I wasn't even there. So I was, that was a remote call. I have been in the room with Nala before when I was tearing her to pieces because, she was on OnlyFans at the time and, a literal prostitute, and told me that you should have unconditional love towards your kids, even if they're doing horrible things, and you need to accept them no matter what, blah, 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 blah. And we got into it about that and all sorts of different things.
And how she also loves cheating. It's her biggest fantasy. Is lying,
and also
lying
that she is a pathological liar and prides herself on being a pathological liar. So, yeah. But the second time, the time that she's talking about here, I wasn't even there.
All right. Well, just let me know when you want to
So
stop.
there was one man in the room, and she had multiple women in the room with her taking her side, and there was only one person there. So
yeah.
But it showed them who they were.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It showed them who they were.
Well, apparently he's being intentional. It showed us that we were bad people because Nala had a fake ministry that she was lying about, and Rachel called her out on it. So the funny thing here is all Janko would have to do, this would be over super quick. I'd just sit down and be like, so Janko, can you tell me why Nala Ray is selling ministry courses on her website? And here's what they're called, and here's all the screenshots for it, and you can go there right now and buy one. And Janko would be like, nope, I can't explain that. And I'd be like, yeah, exactly, Janko, exactly.
Oh, man, it would be, if he wasn't going into this with basically a totally open mind, if he actually did have you on the show, and a totally open mind and just all right, tell me what I'm missing here. And if he, by the end of the podcast, if he didn't totally come around to it, then it's malicious, and there's malicious intent there, because right now, give the benefit of the doubt, doesn't know what he's talking about, hasn't watched the podcast, doesn't know about all the receipts that we've got about how she was still running the OF, and her boyfriend put the prices up, and how she's selling all of these courses on her website. We give the benefit of the doubt, say he doesn't know any of that, but he should know that before he starts going and sort of slagging you guys off on the podcast.
Well, even if they walk
The whole thing is like this has been the pattern for Nala is she goes on podcasts specifically that she thinks will not have follow-ups, which will allow us to give our side. To date, there has not been a single podcast which she's been on bitching about us where they've actually reached out to myself or Brian to get our side of the story. Not a single time. And this is objectively hilarious because we, both of us, me and Brian both, have much larger followings than Nala does.
Mm.
Much larger followings. We're much more connected in the media space. So it's really bizarre that they would want to have her on to talk her shit, but not allow anybody else to come on to clear the air or refute it. And I just noticed that there's a trend with that. And I think that it is probably going to be malicious with Janko as well. I don't think that he's going to actually have me and Rachel on the podcast. I don't think he's going to allow us to give our side whatsoever. And I don't actually blame him because he's going to look really fucking stupid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, would you be willing to do it in a more of a discussion format rather than a debate format where you just tell him what the pieces that he's
Well, I'm not
missing and
going
give him a chance to be
into
a
I
good
wouldn't
faith?
go into debate, I'd go into discuss it, but either
Yeah.
way, he's gonna look fucking stupid because he didn't do any of his due diligence, and instead, right now, what he's doing is he's running his mouth about things he doesn't know anything about
Yeah.
and pretending that he does, and he needs to answer for that, right? So what I would say to him is like, "You need to answer for this. You opened your big, stupid fucking mouth and spewed a bunch of bullshit and horse shit, and you need to correct that." And, like him and most of these guys, they don't like it when you point that out. So
Do you think that Nala could get a spot on the Protestant Avengers on the team?
Nala will forever be pushed by women who are in the Sewing Circle Christian group. And the reason for that is because they're actually all femcons. And their whole point with her is utilizing her as a spear point to as like a victory dance, right?
To
Look, look,
lower the bar as well. Yeah.
we did this. We
Yeah.
were the ones who moved her away from this evil, heinous lifestyle, right? And so because of that, they're always going to be pushing her into the mainstream, even though nobody wants her. Christians don't want her there. Conservatives don't want her there. Liberals don't want her there. She doesn't have a brain in her head. She has no
Mm.
political takes. Like what are Nala's great political takes? None. What's her
Yeah.
great religious takes? None. What's her great spiritual takes? None. The whole point of Nala being there is to spearhead the idea that, look, I was a whore and then I stopped being one because Christ told me to.
Yeah.
Isn't that great? Okay, yay. Everyone applauds. She gets on a plane, goes to the next place, tells them the same exact story. So the whole point is it's all about the testimonial, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is like the types of churches who want that, the testimonial, are usually very grifty churches as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But yeah, what you said before about Janko and everything, and the fact that he does need, I really do think he needs to answer for this because he's got a big platform and he's posting these shorts around, and they're rage bait, clickbait shorts, or his team is doing it or whatever. This is why I'm making a big deal out of this. I've been putting it on Instagram, on Twitter, and been sending it around because he needs to have you on the show and he needs to answer for this. And if he's going to look stupid, at least be humble and stupid is what I'd say. So
They don't listen. They don't do it. Like, look, fundamentally, my biggest problem with the Sewing Circle Christians is that they're cowards.
yeah,
These guys act like they're warriors for Christ, right? They're not. They're just fundamentally cowards. Imagine being so fucking weak that if somebody comes on your show and says the word shit, you have a panic attack. Like, imagine being so soft in a political atmosphere where political commentators are getting shot in the neck
yeah,
and murdered in the streets, that you're so soft that if you have somebody on and they say the F word, you just crumble. You fall on the ground and start screaming in rage. And it's like, that's what they've become. They're the
yeah.
softest, weakest, most easily malleable, easily led retards on planet Earth. And it's very hard for me to have any respect for that kind of Christianity. And so the thing is like, no, they're not going to have me on. Sewing Circle Christians never have on people who will actually refute their bullshit. They just don't do it.
Yeah.
Makes them look bad.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's so true. Go on.
DPG thing says, it's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without a dope beat to step to. Back on the grid, guys. Keep doing what you do. N1SB. Thank you. That's Jungle, by the way. Thank you, Jungle. Appreciate the big $300 super chat. It's very kind of you.
Legend. We love Jungle over here. One of the great patrons. Let's carry on with this.
He had on Andrew Tate, bro. Look, maybe he'll prove me wrong. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but
Yeah.
I just don't think so.
way, let their fans cheer them. Remember, the world is going to cheer for things that we don't want to cheer for. So don't worry about whatever, literally. Don't worry about it.
They're whatever.
But here's the thing, we should pray for them as well.
I have been.
No, I think what they're doing in their heart.
So this is the whole thing that I really have never been able to relate to, and this is why I enjoy more the company of people like yourself and Jay and Jim Bob and guys like this, is because this whole purity signaling thing, I've never really thought that it's real. If that makes sense. I've never thought that it's actually authentic, and it kind of makes me just cringe when I see that sort of thing. Like, we're just
there are some there are some
we are.
There are some people who are very genuine in that, and I have nothing but respect for them, right? But there's a lot of fakers, and
there's like a competition
really
going
funny.
on sometimes, which I find a bit weird.
What's really funny is you'll see them do the purity spiraling on their YouTube channels, and then you'll go into an X space and listen to them, and they're the most vicious, vengeful, spiteful people that you've ever seen in your life. And then the next day they're right back to the purity spiral. And it's like, look, pick a lane, pick a lane here.
Yeah. And if you're going to, I don't know, if you're going to like get some sort of adulation or whatever, I'd want to feel like it's earned in a way rather than, anyways, but we'll carry on with the clip. It's not what it's about.
I understand their point of view, right? But remember what the gospel says, if you do with wisdom, but without love, it's like clashing cymbals hitting together. It does more harm than good.
Right.
This actually is brutal for his position, right? Is that right now he's utilizing exactly that, love absent wisdom. So he doesn't have the wisdom to recognize that he's talking to a woman who converted, just under a year ago, something like this. And immediately upon her conversion with her husband began a ministry and labeled herself as a minister on her website. Now, how much wisdom does a person have talking to a woman like that? How much wisdom do they have not taking her to task for that? How much wisdom do they have not even bothering to look into that? So he's actually at the mercy of this argument, love absent wisdom, right? Two clashing symbols. It's like, well, okay, well, you're a fool. And the thing is like, you answer a fool according to his folly. You forgot that part. So yes, this is amazingly hilarious that he would bring this up when he is the one who's actually at the mercy of this passage.
Yeah, but this is the thing. It's like sometimes I feel like, especially with these, particularly you see it with these Protestants, when they're speaking about Bible verse and they're saying, but the Lord said this, and then this means this. It's like sometimes they just speak so fast and they're trying to be more preachy and charismatic that it doesn't really necessarily make sense. And I think that it's always better to be more measured about the way that you're saying things and maybe a bit more humble rather than just what we see. And towards the end of the clip, we see a lot of this where it's just this sort of like charismatic preachy thing, but we'll carry on.
You down really funny, in their hearts.
Right. It's like, these people misinterpret so much, like even when they're talking about the fruits of the Spirit, they assume that any sort of public personification that you have when you're entering into sort of ruthless discourse with opposition who want to kill you, that somehow negates any fruits of the Spirit you have, even though they have no idea what you may do when nobody's looking, which is when it matters the most, right? And so I often wonder about these people. I think it's the reverse. See, I think that when nobody's looking, they're doing horrible fucking shit. And then when people are looking, they're holier than thou. That's what I think.
Yeah, very true, man. Very true.
In the moment, they're like, dude, we got to correct women because we're seeing where our country's going. They're fighting for the right reason, but they don't have a loving God to remind them, hey, like, remember who you are. But the same way that you had to go through a path that God wanted you to go, they're going through their own. And also, watching them berate you and tear you down only made me realize what God was doing was real.
Wow. Well, what it's made me realize is that Janko is a liar. That's what it's made me realize, is that Janko is a fucking lying sack of shit and didn't actually watch any of this, right? What did he watch? So did he watch a clip and inform his opinion? Because where's the wisdom there, Janko? Do you watch a clip and inform your opinion, or do you go watch everything in context to inform your opinion, Janko? Which one is the wiser course? All it does to me is make me think that the guy is a horrendous liar. That's all it makes me think.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's pretty bad. Like, it's pretty obvious that he's just watched the clip. And obviously, and you've also done follow-up debates about this and everything. Like there is a lot of context out there to be had, and even Crowder has done like a breakdown
He
about
did
this
an
entire
entire
situation.
expose breaking the entire thing down, had all the receipts. I know. We gave them to him. We know exactly what was going on. And what else is always omitted? And this is the most hilarious part. Early on, when people were trying to rip this woman apart, I was the defender.
Yeah, I
I
remember
came
that.
in
Yeah.
early on and told people like Pearl and others, look, we don't know. I remember going on Pearl's channel and I was arguing about this with her and I believe is Rollo Tomasi and others, where I said, listen, we don't actually know what's going on in her life, right? We have no reason to doubt this yet. You need to give it time so that we can see what she does with it. And then we saw what she did with it. And that's when we started going head to head about it. And so like all of that context is completely omitted. They act like I was just some monster who just decided to attack this poor baby Christian, didn't know no better, right? But the opposite is actually true. I gave every benefit of the doubt, and then I'm cast as the villain. But what's really interesting is like eventually the truth of this matter, like the truth of all matters, comes to light. The truth of it will always come to light, and then I get vindicated. But are any of these people who make these completely fabricated allegations ever going to apologize to me, say they're sorry, tell me that they're sorry that they tried to drag my name through the mud and Brian's name through the mud? No, of course not. They'll move on like nothing ever even happened.
You got to remember when Stephen was getting crucified or killed or stoned, what did he say? He goes, God forgive them for they don't know. The same reason that Jesus said that. Remember, people do things because they do not know. They're not bad. They're just lacking wisdom.
I understand that.
When you were just speaking right
Like
now, you were dropping Bible verses and I was catching them. Don't fear the man who could destroy the body, but fear the man who could destroy the body and the soul. Look how your own voice is intertwined with his voice. What I saw,
I really don't understand what he's saying right now. It's like not making much sense to me. I don't think that it's making much sense.
Well, stupid
to her
Protestants,
is it making
stupid
sense
Protestants do this a lot. Where what they do is well, it's not just stupid Protestants; it's stupid Catholics too, right? We're not immune to this. They'll memorize a couple of scriptures and then they intertwine them into conversations, and this is supposed to make them more Christian-y.
This is what I mean. This is what I'm trying to say before. I can't really articulate it very well, but this thing doesn't really strike me as very authentic. Like, for example, when I met Josiah Trenham at the conference, that guy was like a badass, you know? Like, he's like an intimidating sort of guy. And I felt like I couldn't get anything past him. Like, I would not want to lie to him. I would not want to pull the wool over his eyes because you kind of know where you stand in a way. But with these other Protestant-y guys, it's like, if everybody gets the same treatment, then what's the point in trying to ascend at all or earn anything? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but it's not just that. They often forget the Bible is a liturgical document. It's liturgical. It's meant for people who have sophisticated training in body and soul to even interpret correctly. And they have no idea. It's just like talking to them is like talking to a stone wall too. You know what I mean? By the time you untangle the first scripture that they say and show them the context of it, they're already moving on to the next one. And it just goes in this endless cycle of a tube of toothpaste. And it's very annoying.
Yeah.
You
And
squeeze here, it moves there. You squeeze here, it moves
Yeah.
there. And 90% of it is virtue signaling.
And it makes you sort of
99% of it is virtue signaling. It's like,
yeah.
how often are you going to roll over, for your opposition who wants to kill you? Like, you don't have to do that. You can be a Christian and not a pussy at the same time, I promise.
Yeah. And I tell you what else I think about this, and it's probably a bit rich for me to be even speaking on any of these matters, but like, if I was, say, like somebody who wanted to undermine or subvert Christianity, I would go to the church. That's where I would go. I would go to the churches that would have me, and I would do my work there. If it was really my mission, and if there was no barrier to entry whatsoever, then that's where I would be. Does that make sense?
I mean, kinda, yeah. It does make sense. But like, diving into this, Jake, just note that most of the time when people are regurgitating scriptures, they're regurgitating somebody else's interpretation of those scriptures, not even their own. And so you're going to be informed by the people who are explaining to you what these things mean, right? And they usually lack critical context. Almost always they lack critical context and don't even understand that many of these things are era specific as well. They are indeed true, but they're allegorically true and physically true, right? And timelessly true. So
Mm-hmm.
they're true all throughout. But absent context, you don't even know it. That's why, again, it's very difficult for me to take much of it seriously.
Yeah. All right. Let's finish this off.
As a woman wielding a sword. Now let's time travel when Jesus was fighting the devil. They only wielded their mouth in the verses of God.
Right.
So when a man is standing around a room, it could be 1,000 men, but they could know themselves. But if you know God, it's better than every single person in front of you.
Any closing thoughts on that?
Just reminds me of the scene from Vikings, right? The Vikings, they raid a monastery, and one of the monks says, "Okay, God, save me and protect me," and the Viking laughs at him and cuts his head off. Right. The thing is that, like, look, um, you don't have to be a sitting duck. You don't have to be a fool in order to be a Christian. And there's so much pacifism which is now involved in Christianity instead of resisting evil, that it kind of makes me sick. And at this point, it's blatantly obvious to me that they would prefer that Nala's story be true, even if it isn't. They're not going to look into it at all. And so like trying to refute it is almost impossible because they won't even look into the other side. They literally refuse to look into the other side, no matter how much evidence is presented to them.
Mm.
They just refuse. Why? They want a good story.